December 2022, the world stopped for 90 minutes that would turn into one of the greatest spectacles football has ever seen. On one side stood Lionel Messi, a legend who had won it all, yet carried the one missing piece that critics used to question his greatness: a World Cup. For him, this was more than just another match. It was his last chance to silence every doubt and write the final chapter of his story. On the other side, Kylian Mbappé, the unstoppable prodigy who had already lifted the trophy at just 19 years old. Fast, ruthless, and fearless. He wasn't there to admire Messi's legacy. He was there to destroy it. What unfolded wasn't simply a final. It was a battle between two eras, the fading brilliance of the present and the terrifying promise of the future. And the entire world was about to witness a clash so dramatic, it felt less like sport and more like destiny. For Lionel Messi, the 2022 World Cup wasn't just another tournament. It was the final chapter of a story that had lasted nearly 2 decades. He had carried Argentina on his shoulders for years, only to fall short on the biggest stage. The memory of 2014 still haunted him. A final lost in extra time, the image of Messi walking past the trophy etched into football history as one of the most painful moments of his career. By 2022, he had done everything else: 7 Ballon d'Ors, Champions League titles, records that may never be broken. To his fans, he was already the greatest, but to his critics, there was always that lingering question: how can he be the best if he never won the World Cup? This tournament was his last chance, his final opportunity to erase every doubt and cement himself beyond debate. Kylian Mbappé, on the other hand, entered Qatar with a completely different weight on his shoulders. At only 23, he had already done what Messi had been chasing for a lifetime, lifting the World Cup. In 2018, the teenager shocked the world by scoring in the final, leading France to glory. By 2022, he wasn't just a rising star, he was a global icon, the face of Nike, PSG, and a player many believed would dominate the next decade. He didn't need to prove his greatness, he needed to prove he could take the throne. This final wasn't just a match, it was the perfect collision of stories. Messi, the veteran desperate to end his career with the only trophy missing from his cabinet. Mbappé, the prodigy determined to show that the future belonged to him. Argentina fighting for their idol, France fighting to create a dynasty. It wasn't Argentina versus France, it was past versus future, legacy versus ambition. A battle that promised to decide not only who would lift the trophy, but who would define an era. From the opening whistle, Argentina came out with fire. They pressed with intensity, every player moving with a purpose, as if the entire squad understood this was Messi's last dance and they weren't going to let it slip away. Within the first half hour, it was clear. Argentina looked sharper, faster, hungrier. Messi, calm but determined, orchestrated the attack with his trademark vision. Every touch carried weight, every pass pulled France further apart. Then, the breakthrough arrived. A swift counter, Angel Di Maria charging down the left, drawing defenders, and finishing a move that felt like destiny. The stadium erupted. Argentina were 2-0 up in just 36 minutes. On the French side, silence. Kylian Mbappé barely touched the ball. France looked lifeless, their midfield overwhelmed, their defense stretched to its limit. The cameras kept finding Mbappé's face, frustrated, isolated, waiting for a spark that never came. By halftime, the script seemed written. Messi's redemption was unfolding before the world's eyes. Argentina controlled the rhythm, France looked beaten, and millions believed the story had already found its ending. But football has a way of punishing those who think they know how the story ends. For over 70 minutes, it seemed like Kylian Mbappé didn't even exist on the pitch. Argentina had smothered him, cutting off every pass, every run, and forcing him into silence. Fans around the world began to wonder if this would be remembered as the night Messi rose while Mbappé disappeared. But football doesn't follow scripts, and in the space of 90 seconds, the entire story of the World Cup final flipped upside down. Minute 80, France won a penalty. The weight of a nation, and perhaps the future of football itself, rested on Mbappé's shoulders. He stepped forward, face expressionless, body calm. With one swing of his right foot, the ball rocketed into the bottom corner. Emiliano Martinez guessed correctly, but couldn't stop it. 2-1. Suddenly, the silence of the French supporters erupted into thunder, yet Mbappé wasn't finished. In fact, he was just waking up. Barely a minute later, a clever 1-2 sliced through Argentina's defense. The ball bounced back toward him on the edge of the box, and without a second thought, Mbappé unleashed a stunning volley. The ball flew past Martinez before he could react. In the blink of an eye, it was 2-2. The stadium was chaos. French players piled on top of Mbappé, Argentinian fans clutched their heads in disbelief, and Messi stood still, staring at the scoreboard as if refusing to believe what had just happened. 90 seconds earlier, Argentina were champions. Now, the game was tied, and momentum had shifted violently. Commentators around the world screamed that history was unfolding before their eyes. Mbappé had dragged France back from the edge of defeat, single-handedly changing the destiny of the match. He had scored twice in less than 2 minutes on the grandest stage of them all. What had seemed like Messi's coronation was suddenly Mbappé's rebellion. The prodigy wasn't there to play a supporting role in someone else's story. He had come to steal the spotlight, and yet this was still only the beginning of the most dramatic 30 minutes in World Cup history. Extra time began with both teams running on pure adrenaline. Argentina had gone from control to collapse in the blink of an eye, and France suddenly looked unstoppable. Every touch from Mbappé carried danger. Every run had Argentina's defense panicking, but legends don't fade quietly, and Lionel Messi wasn't about to let his story end in heartbreak. In the second half of extra time, Argentina surged forward. Lautaro Martinez broke through, firing a shot that forced Hugo Lloris into a desperate save. The ball spilled loose inside the box, bouncing dangerously among a sea of legs. And there, waiting like destiny itself, was Messi. With the calm of a man who had done this his whole life, he struck the rebound past the defenders on the line. The ball crossed just enough, and the stadium exploded. Messi wheeled away, fists pumping, eyes wide, screaming in triumph. 3-2. Argentina was back in front, and it felt like fate was finally on his side. But this final had no interest in being predictable. Just minutes later, France attacked again. A shot struck the arm of an Argentinian defender. Penalty. For the third time, Mbappé stepped up. He stared down Emiliano Martinez, the pressure crushing, the world watching. And with ice in his veins, he buried it. Hat trick. 3-3. The World Cup final had now become a duel of titans. Messi with 2 goals, Mbappé with 3, one chasing immortality, the other rewriting history in real time. Every minute felt like the entire sport itself was being redefined. It was no longer about teams, tactics, or managers. This was Messi versus Mbappé, exchanging blows on the biggest stage of all. And still, the match refused to give us a winner. The destiny of 2 generations would now be decided by penalties. When the whistle blew at the end of extra time, the entire stadium froze. 90 minutes hadn't been enough. 30 more hadn't been enough. After 6 goals, after Messi and Mbappé trading blows like heavyweights, the World Cup would be decided by the most brutal lottery in football: penalties. The air was heavy. Every step to the spot felt like walking into destiny. For Argentina, Emiliano Dibu Martinez stood tall, the man who had built a reputation for thriving in these exact moments. For France, it was Mbappé once again, carrying the weight of a nation. He went first. Calm, cold, ruthless. He sent Martinez the wrong way. 4 goals in a World Cup final. No one had ever done it before, but the shootout had just begun. Then Messi. Every Argentinian heart stopped as he approached. Instead of power, he rolled the ball softly, almost playfully, sending Lloris the wrong way. The calm of a king. 1-1. The tension grew with every kick. France blinked first. Kingsley Coman stepped up, struck low, and Martinez dived perfectly to deny him. Advantage Argentina, the pressure mounted. Paulo Dybala, just subbed in for this very moment, buried his kick down the middle. 2-1 Argentina. Then Aurelien Tchouameni cracked under the weight, dragging his shot wide of the post. French dreams crumbled as Argentinians roared. Gonzalo Montiel walked up with history on his boot, score, and Argentina would be champions. The stadium held its breath. He ran, struck, and sent the ball into the corner. Goal. Argentina were World Cup winners. Messi was finally immortal. When the final whistle blew, the world witnessed history. Messi, draped in the black and gold bisht, lifted the World Cup at last. The missing piece of his legacy finally in his hands. The image became eternal, the moment that silenced every doubt. Across the field stood Mbappé, clutching the golden boot after scoring a hat-trick in a final, yet wearing the face of defeat. At just 23, he had nearly stolen Messi's crown. 2 images define the night, the king completing his story, and the heir proving his time is coming. It wasn't just a match, it was the passing of an era. When the dust settled, it was Argentina who stood on top of the world, and at the heart of it all was Lionel Messi, finally holding the one trophy that had eluded him his entire life. For years, he had carried the weight of expectation, the burden of heartbreak, and the endless comparisons. That night in Lusail, every doubt, every criticism, every "but no World Cup" vanished forever. Messi had completed football, yet across the field there was another story unfolding. Kylian Mbappé, just 23 years old, had scored a hat-trick in a World World Cup final, something never before seen in the modern era. He had dragged his team back from the brink, kept the final alive almost by himself, and announced to the world that the future already belongs to him. Even in defeat, his performance felt like a warning. This is only the beginning. That's why this final will never just be remembered as Argentina versus France. It will be remembered as Messi versus Mbappé, the night a legend reached immortality and a prodigy carved his name into destiny. It was a passing of the torch, not in silence, but in fire and chaos. Messi left as the undisputed greatest. Mbappé left as the inevitable heir, and so the question lingers, when Messi's era finally ends, will Mbappé be the one to take the throne, or will someone else rise to challenge him? One thing is certain, football may never give us a battle like this again.